speaking of guidelines, I've got to go and say, so I saw the other day that you have gone back to the studio to teach.
I'm going back.
You're going back, okay.
2 weeks.
Oh. And I started reading the guidelines for that, and I just went, I don't know how you do it.
The one class I'm going back to is a gym class. It's a council leisure centre. They're marking it all out. So the studio you would hold 20 pre-COVID.
Right.
Now it's 8 max.
8. Actually, 8 is not a bad number for a class, to be honest. I mean, 20 is for, especially like for me, like when I was doing Zumba Gold, 15 I found was a good number to be able to be aware of what most people were doing and make sure it was safe.
I find the bigger the classes, the harder it is to watch everyone, the harder it is to correct people. And I always find my business works on a smaller class. And a lot of my ladies that I attract prefer a smaller class, because I attract, say, especially my community classes, I don't attract the gym bunnies. I don't attract those that like a really high impact class. I attract more larger ladies. I suit their style of fitness. So for me, having smaller classes fit the type of people I attract.
Right, because that's what they feel, you know.
They feel more comfortable in the smaller class.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So, but I was just going to say, because you mentioned you don't just teach Zumba, you teach a whole range of classes, which I don't know how you do that, because I struggle to keep up. And one of the things, actually it was 2 things. There was one thing I was just wanted to before we move on from Zumba, one of the things that always used to drive me nuts, as because I teach Zumba Gold, which is the
same here, yeah.
To make the class accessible for people with disabilities or injuries or anything else, health problems. And one of the things that used to drive me nuts was having to constantly kind of explain and to sort of have that understanding that actually teaching people with health challenges is a much tougher discipline.
Yeah.
And it used to drive me nuts because people would kind of go, oh yeah, Zumba Gold, that's old lady Zumba. It literally has got the nickname old lady Zumba. And people think it's just really easy because you don't really do that much, And yeah, that drove me nuts because I used to, and I still do, work so hard to understand.
With Zumba Gold, you still can work as hard as you do in a B1 normal fitness class, but it's just at a different intensity.
Yeah, but it's also like, for me, what I found was, the training goes so far, but then you kind of have to go in and work with your participants and learn about their issues. So I did a lot of work with MS, people with multiple sclerosis, which is like a really weird disease.
Yeah.
Because it's like the only thing we kind of know, or back then, was exercise is good for you, and it tends to benefit people who've got MS. But it was like, well, this might help some people, but it might not help other people. So really, the only way for me to learn and grow and teach that kind of class was to have a class of people who had MS and to constantly be checking in with them, going, it's like, does that work for you? Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Does that help? Does that work for you? And it's like an internship. It's an apprenticeship in the time it takes to really get to know people.
And also, it's about knowing if you're doing a move and spotting that they can't pick it up, change it on the spot. Not all instructors can do that.
The versatility, I think, that you need as I don't know, would you call it like a special needs instructor?
I say disability instructor. I don't like the word special needs, but
no. I think the thing is, I would call it like because things you might have people who it's very confusing because it might be people who don't actually have a disability.
Yeah.
But it's kind of I always think it's that the word I always use is accessible and inclusive. Well, actually, your word is inclusive, isn't it?
inclusive, and also it's making it, it's just making it, like my tagline for my business is no boundaries fitness. So it's making fitness with no boundaries.
I love
And
that.
fitness can be with no boundaries. It just depends on the instructor. So for me, you can teach everyone. So like same with you with MS, with CP, cerebral palsy is exactly the same. No two people with cerebral palsy has it the same way. And
Yeah.
what one person can do, what another person can do, can be 1,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got to really work on the spot with those clients, and you really got to know the condition inside out as well.
Absolutely. And I did a lot of work with people with dementia, which is, a lot of people don't realise that that affects people physically,
Yeah.
as well as you know, the cognitive element. There's also what do you call a deterioration in what somebody can do. And so the work is, it's what do you call them, these kind of illnesses that, you know, like MS and like dementia, that
Or you have like the nurses or the champions, or
what's that?
you got like the MS nurses.
Yeah.
And you have like dementia champions, I think they're called.
Well, no, I just meant like these kind of the ones. This is kind of like it's an illness that kind of makes your physical fitness deteriorate.
Yeah.
So if you're working with somebody with an illness like that, for somebody to keep at the same level of fitness is a huge achievement, and it's kind of, yeah, it's there's so much going on when you're trying to see somebody in there. So, and like you say, I think the rule we always had with Zumba was have music that you know really, really well, because then you know the chorus, you know the verse, and then if you get there and you do something and they can't do it, you go, right, quick, change that move. And you have to change things and slow it down or do half a move, and people think that's easy.
And it's not always easy. And you get some of these people say, let's take a two-step, for example. Not everyone can do a two-step because they've got balance issues, it's stepping out to the side. What do? They might need to have their arms out to do it. It's all these things that and the same with a box step. So actually a box step can be really hard for some people.
Totally.
The balance issues. Some can't walk backwards.
Yeah. So I think there's so many aspects of what you do, and I think, you know, even from my experience of working in inclusive fitness, is I just think, how do you do it and have a day job at the same time? I don't understand.
I work part-time in my day job. That's how I do it.
Even so, how do you know, when I look at everything that you do and everything you've done, I'm like, how do you fit that into a life?
I find with my CP, the less I do, the worse I am.
Okay.
So the more I do, the better my CP is in itself. So the fact that I take lockdown, for example. So before I went on holiday, I was at work. I would do, for example, I would do 2 gym sessions at work. I would do a trampoline session. I'd be rebounding clients on a trampoline. I would be doing like other sessions as well, like multi-sport sessions. So I went from doing all that, my evening classes that I do, that I kept, but also my daytime classes that I do privately for like care homes and day provisions, etc. So, and it really kept my CP at its best.
Yeah.
So during lockdown, I've been doing the complete opposite of that. Though I have been teaching, say, 6 classes a week, I really suffered for it. My balance got worse, I was falling over more, I was finding I'm getting a lot more tired, my muscles are getting really tight, and I was just really suffering in ways that I haven't suffered in a long, long time. So for me, when I stop, it's the worst thing for me. I can have a day off, yeah, fine, but anything longer than, say, a week or 2 weeks, or actually, let's take a month. If I'm not doing anything for a month, then it really affects my actual CP.
Yeah.
And so for me to keep going, it's the best thing for me, because even though cerebral palsy is a non-progressive condition, it is because of the aging, the effects of aging coming a lot earlier than, say, a non-able, for an able-bodied person. So, and that's what a lot of people don't understand with CP.
Yeah.
So for me to keep active, I'm also delaying the onset of osteoporosis. Though I've got arthritis in my CP foot, I'm keeping it more at bay because it's not spreading anywhere because of how active I am.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You know, absolutely. I just realised quite how long we've been talking for. I could talk to you all night, quite easily. So
oh my God.
I was like, do you know, I thought we hadn't been on that long, and then I realised I'd missed an hour, and I was like, oh, okay, no, we have been on quite a long time. So I want to ask you 2 questions, really, just to wind us up. And the first one is, so people can vote for you in the National Community Fitness Awards in the inclusive category until Saturday the 8th of August.
They got another week to vote.
And are you under that as Sam James? Or
yes, I'm under that as Sam James. So all they got to do is go on the website, which is communityfitnessawards.co.uk, click on vote, and then click on the inclusive category and click on my name.
Right.
So you can have a vote per device. So it could be 1 vote per laptop, 1 per phone, 1 per iPad, for example. Or I have got the link for the direct vote to me on my Facebook page, which is under Inclusive Fit. It is INCLUSFIT, and the same on Instagram as well.
And of course, you can also follow Sam on all social media because you do have so many inspiring posts. So I've got 2 questions. And the first is, now you had a whole list of things that you have done, for the reasons why you've been chosen, you know, for this. I would like you to give me your top 3, the 3 achievements that you are proudest of, okay? Because you've done so much, you can't talk about it all. And then the other question, and I'll ask you this at the same time, and you can answer it together or separate, is what would your advice be to other people with disabilities or health conditions who would like to get more involved with fitness, or who are thinking that they might even want to be an instructor?
What's the first one again?
What are your top 3 things
in
your list, in your whole long list of amazing achievements?
So for me, one would be absolutely getting my PT qualification. I really struggled with the A&P aspect of that exam. It's so hard, and the way I learn, I really struggled with actually learning everything and retaining it. I could get it out on paper, and I failed it a couple of times, and I only like a couple of marks off the actual pass mark. So like the feeling I got when I finally passed that exam was incredible. No one else can know how I felt, because it's blood, sweat and tears for me to pass that exam.
What's A&P?
Anatomy and physiology. So it's about how the body works.
Anatomy and physics. Yes, I remember.
And at level 3, it's from level 2 and level 3, it's a massive jump.
Yeah, I have level 2, and Sam is way more qualified than me.
And the gap between level 2 and level 3 is huge, and the terminology is all Latin as well, and you've got to learn all the muscles, the insertion points, the origin points, knowing what way they move, the nervous system, the heart, everything in real detail. So it's quite a big exam, and it's just trying to remember everything in this little head. And sometimes they word a question and there could be 2 correct answers there. But it's knowing what way they're thinking to get it right. Yeah. As you're from level 2, yeah. Other 2, actually one of them is getting my day job. I always struggled with getting employment because of my disability, or actually being recognised in my job. My manager always recognises what I do. He knows how knowledgeable I am on the subject. He really values me. He always says that to me as well, and that goes a very long way. And he always supports if I want to improve myself with CPD. And again, in a previous appointment, if I wanted to progress and go further, I was halted because of my disability. So it's really nice to have an employer that values me as a person and puts it doesn't even look at my disability. And that's a big thing for me. It might not be for everyone, but for me, that's a huge thing, to have an employer that values me as a person. And I won an award last year, and I was absolutely gobsmacked that I won that award. I was in shock before I went off to get it. And I won Equality and Diversity Instructor last year, and I couldn't believe it. And then I came a runner-up in the female instructor category as well. And I was the only disabled person in that category. So for me, that is even more amazing because there's no other disabled person. So and it's the most nominated category as well. So to get a runner-up in there, it was really amazing. Any other questions, Pearl?
What advice would you give to somebody who either has a disability or a health condition that, you know, like you said, that the ex-boyfriend you had that said you couldn't become an Zumba instructor, like anybody who's kind of thinking along those lines that they might not be able to do something to get either even just to go to a class or to become an instructor because of their
condition
problems. Yeah, exactly.
I always say to them to actually contact the instructor beforehand. So if they say, for example, they think, oh yeah, I really want to do a Zumba class, I always say to them, contact the instructor first, because actually if you just turn up, you are going to not just scare them, they are going to think, oh my God, they haven't got time to prepare for your arrival. They might need a chair, they might not have a chair available. Whereas if you give them warning about your condition, about what is involved, they can not only check their insurance to make sure they're covered to work with you, because not all instructors are covered by their insurance company, there's so many, but to also have a chat with them so they can find out who you are before you turn up. So then when you turn up, it's a much smoother process than if you just surprise them. Because that's a big thing. I think a lot of disabled people get disgruntled by instructors going, oh! But it's the fact that as instructors, like to have a bit of, we all prepare, every session is prepared in advance. We don't just turn up and whack the music on and teach. We prepare every session. We know the music, we know what order we're doing it in, we know roughly who's going to turn up, we know that exactly how long we've got in that building, so to speak, in that time slot that we got after the class that we've got to get out. And sometimes they're not aware of all the things that we do behind the scenes.
I mean, I suppose it makes sense as well. I mean, even I remember with my Zumba Girl classes, even though I would never have turned anybody away if they had just turned up on the day. But at that time, I did have classes that were fully booked. So that's another thing, is just to contact an instructor and just say, do you have space? I've got a health condition. You know, it's not actually that, you know, people were always shocked when they would ring me and they would say, oh, can I come to class? I've got this, I've got that. The other, I said, yeah. Because, you know, you've got so much experience of teaching so many people with different kinds of problems. It's not going to faze you. No.
Even even when I get a condition I never heard of before, I at least if I know beforehand, I got time to like go and quickly Google what I need to know as well, and then if I can't find it on Google, I can then ask other instructors that work with exercise referral, so that I can use my network of people to say, oh, I've got this condition, I don't know what to do, or is there anything I shouldn't do? More importantly, that's what we need to know, what shouldn't we do? So like some people with spinal bifida can't always twist because they're in a wheelchair, and it might really hurt their back even more, but also the wheelchair can tip as well. So there's different things you've got to think about with one condition. And it's like, I would take, for example, again, like Down syndrome, if they've got a neck condition, they can't do anything over their head. And I've seen so many instructors teach Downs and do stuff over the head without knowing about anything about this condition.
And is that a common problem with people who have Down syndrome? Right. Yeah. So I wouldn't have known that, and I actually have taught plenty of people with Down syndrome through classes. And so again, you're teaching me now, you know, that there are more the thing is, you do this thing when you teach class, and you always say the same thing to groups, which is, do you have any injuries or problems?
And I will share this now, disabled people, some people won't say about their true disability, or they won't lie on the health form, so they will tick no, and they're gonna have got it, because they could be embarrassed, or they think you don't need to know, when actually we do need to know everything for our insurance. Because something happened and they didn't tell us, they could be liable for that, not us, because they didn't declare it on that health form.
But I would just say that I've had so many people come to classes and come in, and I've asked that question, we've done the class, and either at the end of it or after 2 or 3 weeks, they turn around and say to me, actually, I do have this, or I do have that. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? And they say, because I thought you wouldn't let me do the class, you know. And so I think, just to say, like, you know, we do also understand why people do lie on forms. We do understand, because you just want to be involved. So, I mean,
and the thing is, there are some instructors that would turn them away and not have them back because they're just scared to have them, or they think they're going to get sued, or whatever reason it is. But there's also a very big percentage of people now that will have them, and there's more training out there now to work with disabled clients. So actually, a lot more instructors are aware and will have them, but it's just finding that it's sometimes, I always say this with any person, that you could take a Simba class, for example, not like it, but you don't like it because you don't like Simba. You just don't connect with that instructor. You sometimes have to go for 3 or 4 different instructors until you find that one instructor that you match with.
That is absolutely true. And I would just say, actually, I wanted to just touch on this. I don't know if you had this experience, Sam, and I can, you know, just to say, I understand where, you know, the form filling thing comes in, because I organised actually a break with my brother and my mum. We went away, and I rang the spa, you know, because, you know, my brother wanted to have a treatment, you know, have reflexology. And we'd booked it all up, and I'd said, right, he's got this, you know, is there anything, you know, do we need to give you any more information? And they said, no, that's absolutely fine. You know, the therapists are all trained. There's no, you know, as long as his doctor doesn't, you know, think there's any reason why he can't have this, it's fine. And then when we turned up on the day, and obviously we were staying in the hotel, you know, everything, turned up on the day, and one of the therapists hadn't turned up. So they were shorthanded. And so then they started making it about, oh, well, you know, if he's disabled and we don't have a note from the doctor and da, 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 da. And it was like, we were very annoyed because we had rung ahead. I had rung specifically. You think, how can you now turn around when you've made a whole break, you know, a whole holiday around being able to have a healthy treatment, and it drives me nuts as well, because, you know, you sort of think, well, it's nothing dangerous. You know, there's nothing dangerous here. And ultimately, it was very, you know, he did have the treatment, and it was incredibly beneficial. It was incredibly beneficial. And I think maybe we just all need to get better at, as you say, the inclusiveness of being able to, you know, as you say, you've got so much training that you can adapt and you can include people, and just making it easier for people to be involved.
But it's also, I don't know if you find this, but so many instructors use the word inclusive, accessible class, when actually it's not always that inclusive and it's not always that accessible, because the building might not be accessible. You know, there could be a wheelchair user and they're it's upstairs, for example, and you know, it's thinking about the whole thing. So if you're saying your class is fully accessible, fully inclusive, you need to think of everything that is.
Yeah, I think I was very lucky in that pretty much all the studios I taught in were like local authority or charity. So they had ramps, they had lifts, they had disabled toilets, they had, you know, all that kind of stuff. But actually thinking about it, I did have one class that was up a very small, steep set of, you know, and that again was a Zumba Gold. So actually having said that probably wasn't a good venue. And to be honest, I was glad when I stopped teaching there and I moved on to a much better, again, a venue with disabled toilets. But you have to also be careful, and this is the thing that drives me nuts. I don't know if you had this before. Various venues use the disabled toilet as a place to stash stuff.
Cleaning room, clean store cupboard.
Yeah, and I was like, you go to a gym and there's a disabled toilet, and when you go to use it, it's got all these boxes and gear in there because they needed to put it somewhere. And it's like, oh, well, nobody uses the disabled toilet because we're a gym, so let's put all the boxes in there.
There's a comedian, I can't remember her name, she's got cerebral palsy, and she went round a few gyms in London and she filmed it for, I think, Channel 4. And a couple of the gyms, she had that. She goes, have you got a disabled changing room? And they said, oh yeah. And then she went in, obviously had the secret camera like, on her. And she's in there going, well, how can I get changed in here? Because I've got all these mops, buckets, boxes everywhere. They call this a changing room. They call this a toilet. I've got to go to the toilet, looking at all this cleaning, eating chemicals and everything out that they stored there. This is actually quite dangerous. And places don't think about that sort of thing.
I have to. There's a lot of private, I would say private gyms, you know, because I think the council ones tend to be much more aware of where you
they do.
But a lot of, I mean, and I think that actually this is actually an important point to make right now, in that a lot of gyms were pressurizing instructors to teach at the beginning of lockdown here and in the States, when it was questionable, and it was kind of clear that really this is not safe, and this is not some. And if you look at the guidelines now for going back to gyms, you can see. Actually, Zumba had put a sheet on their website explaining all the different rules. And I remember of number 4, and I was like, no, there's no way you want to go to a gym right now. Unfortunately, just for anybody who's listening or watching, who's thinking of going back to a gym, you know, really pay attention to the health and safety. Pay attention to if you feel that people are following the guidelines.
And if they're not, tell a member of staff. Yeah. Because like at my gym, if I see someone, it's got in my book up, you get like a list of all the terms and conditions that you had to abide by. And one is, if you see someone not adhering to the rules, you've got to tell a member of staff. And it is to tell a member of staff, because it's not just for your safety, it's for other people's safety, but more importantly, the staff's safety. Because staff are more at risk being in there every day, and they're putting their lives at risk to open it for the general public, be it for gym classes, swimming pool, whatever. So they're being put at risk, and so you've got to make sure that you're protecting them as well, so that the centre stays open.
Absolutely. So, and I was just thinking, actually, you were talking about your achievements, and one achievement you hadn't mentioned, but I'm sure will make a lot of people very jealous. is Zumba is a great organisation because not only do they include people with disabilities and health problems, I think they just really celebrate, you know, and I've been, you know, at convention and places like that, and at the London 2012 and things like that. What I love is that they really celebrate people who have overcome difficulties in order to become instructors and to teach. And so you have spent quite some quality time with Mr. Beto Perez, the head of Zumba Service.
I have, yeah. So back at the Shin Academy in 2015, 15, I think it's 15. I forget how long ago it was, but I got to dance with Mr. Beto, quite a surprise. So I remember like 3 or 4 weeks beforehand, I had a phone, 2 weeks beforehand, I had a phone call from Gina, who's the community manager at Home Office. And I was like, first of all, I just had a missed call on my phone, and it said exactly where exactly the address of Zumba, and I was like, oh my god, and I knew straight away because it's like the exact area of Miami where they are. And I was like, and I got the voicemail, and she's like, oh hi, it's Gina from the Zumba Home Office. Can you call me back? If not, I'll try and call you back. So I tried to call her back. I could leave a message, and she called me back. And so the way they organised it was they got me to do a speech on how I make my classes accessible, how other instructors can include disabled people. And I had to send it in like a week before. I had a week to write it, basically. So I had to send it in for them to approve it, so that I was saying the right things. And then actually on the day, I was absolutely nervous, really sort of booking it. And because there's about 500 people, over 500 people there, I was like, oh, and I got on stage, and I could see that Beto was at the side, and he was watching my speech, which made me even more nervous. And I had like these little cue cards with notes on, but I got so nervous that I just completely did it in a completely different order, as you do, because I was like, oh, and then they surprised me afterwards. The Dave, who works at the London office, surprised me with Beto. So I got to dance with him, which is absolutely amazing. That he chose a song I didn't even know. So I had to quickly, like, at the start, I was a little bit like, what am I doing? But then you get to see me really get into it within like a minute. So yeah, that is pretty amazing.
And you haven't stopped smiling yet.
It comes up on my Facebook memories every year, and I'm like, oh, it's still surreal.
Yeah. And do you know what? I wasn't actually there, but I like when you talk about it, I feel like I was. You know, you.
And I actually wish I could dance with him again, but I would love to do one of my choreographies.
Yeah, you'd like to teach better.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah. I always say that he's welcome to my class. Yeah.
I love that. Look, you know what? I think we're going to have to split this podcast into two. Maybe we've really gone on. I can't resist to ask you one more question though, which is there's been so much in the news about this beautiful young teenager with Down syndrome who's been the first model to pose for Gucci and Vogue. I don't know if you saw that.
I've seen it on Instagram. So I saw the model agency that she is with. I saw a post from them basically.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty amazing that bigger companies now are recognizing that disabled people not only can work, but can work in every industry going. So, and it's really good to see disability represented in the media, because normally the media is really not represented at all. So it's really nice to see it actually represented.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Oh, we could go on, or I think we've had a, like, what I love here in England is we've had a bit of a shift since the 2012 Paralympics.
Yeah.
And the last leg.
Yes.
Which is a hugely popular program here, and it kind of it was started by, I think they started it for the Paralympics, to talk about issues around disability, and then it kind of took off and it went a bit like, they've done all kinds of weird things, and I have to say one of my favorite things of all time is the one where they went to Australia. Have you seen that?
Yes, I watch them all. I love that program.
But the one when they're in Australia is being flown by a blind pilot.
Yeah.
And yes, discussing the difference it makes when you have an artificial limb when you're walking through a snake infested field, and you know, whether the snake was going to bite your artificial leg. And I just, you know, I mean, you know, you've seen it all and it still makes you laugh, you know. Anybody out there who hasn't checked out, and especially if you're in the States or other parts of the world, if you haven't checked out The Last Leg,
check it out. It's a good laugh.
It is, and it is a really, I think the thing is, it started about being a conversation starter and getting people to discuss things that either they thought might make people feel uncomfortable, or that made them feel uncomfortable, and just to kind of get things out and just be open and honest.
And they also take the mick out of themselves as well, and that's what disabled people often do. Like on my level 2 gym course, we used to have 9 disabled people on the course, and sometimes you'll be like, oh, do I say this, or do I say that? And we were all just taking the mick out of each other. Like I would say to that we had a guy who's visually impaired, and he played cricket for GB, and it was like, I didn't know where we were going. I had to lead him down to the gym. Like it had 2 entrances. I said, oh, which way are we going? And he goes, I don't know. And oh, it's like the blind leading the blind. And the instructor, our tutor goes, you can't say that. And the guy just went, why can't you? It's true.
Well, yeah, and he's, you know, talking, and I think that's the thing, when you've got a health issue or a disability, you know, I mean, in fairness, like having to deal with it with my family and things like that, there are some times where you just kind of go, you know, especially when you're trying to navigate the world, and there are things where you just go, how are you supposed to do this? Like, you know, you can't do this, or you can't, you know, you can't, and there's a sort of ridiculousness too, having to try to achieve. So, I mean, my brother struggles with using one of his arms, and you know, it's amazing how many things are extremely difficult or impossible without 2 hands.
Yeah.
You know, and so we end up, it's a lot of things we end up, you know, just trying to say, well, you know, the difficulties of that make for a lot of comedic moments, you know, and for the, you know, when you're doing the watering of the garden and the hose pipe and something goes wrong, and it's just like, well, you've got to laugh, you know, you do have to laugh, because when you experience those challenges in life, you know, I think a good sense of humour is really what gets you through a lot of it.
It is. It's like my friends find it like funny, because when I fall over, we laugh.
Yeah.
And everyone, if I fall over in public and we're laughing, they remember, like strangers looking at us thinking, why are they laughing for? Yeah. But it's because I'm like, oh my God, I did it again.
It is one of those things, because I hope you don't mind me saying, you did fall in our training that we did, you know, when we met, the Aqua Zumba. And in a gym environment, if somebody falls, everyone goes, oh, we're going to get sued. And you're like, no, this is something that happens, and you just pick yourself back up again, and, you know, it's not the end of the world.
I find that at events, like say take a fitness event, I will fall more because I don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
But if I'm teaching, I don't fall because I know my brain knows what's coming. It's that muscle memory. Whereas at an event, say I'm doing Beto's masterclass, because I don't know what's coming, and I don't know other people around me, how their spatial awareness of me, that's all these factors that are added in that can make it higher likely chance of me falling over.
And I mean, I've fallen over several times in classes when I was, but usually sometimes when I was teaching, but also when I just got overexcited. Or well, usually because always because I got overexcited, but sometimes, you know, you come in and if you teach and you go around to different places and you have different surfaces, and you do a move and it's like, and I mean, this is a particularly slippery floor I teach on, and it's one of the reasons I'm just teaching Zumba Gold at the moment, because I can't really jump because I've got low ceilings, I've got flagstones that are tripping hazard, and it's very, very sheer. So there are reasons why I don't want to do jumping, which is why
I'm teaching on carpet, so I can't jump because
yeah,
carpet with hips, knees and ankles is a big no, as you all know how hard that is.
But I think the thing is like, what I love is when I finish teaching, I feel like I've had a good workout. My guys feel they've had a good workout. So I always say, like when I'm teaching, I always go like, if you can't go up, go down. You know, if you can't move this leg, you move that leg. If you can't do this, do that. There's always a way. And we must stop talking. We must talk. But I would just say this, it's a really important point, and it's something that I was taught with my Zumba Gold, and this is scientifically proven. There is a neurological benefit to just watching exercise and just watching sport. And I taught one of the most moving experiences I had as a teacher was working with people who are at end of life and who have dementia. And it's amazing, the music, the way that the music affects people, and they can do things that they couldn't do before. They can, even if they just clap, or even if they just listen, even if they just nod. And I'm saying this because, you know, if somebody's out there and you think, oh, well, I can't do this, this and this, what value is you know.
Does it matter?
Just, to be honest, teaching, you know, at that time, I think the thing is, the biggest thing for me was the music waking people up, you know, with dementia, when they really had kind of almost, you know, left the building.
Yes.
To have one more conversation, you know, to have one more moment of being able to feel the music and feel the emotion and be the person, you know, with the memories and it's hard to put into it. It's one of those things that I think I've been so blessed to be able to work with what we call, I think we sort of call special populations. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
You like that? Do you like, is that all right? You like special populations?
Yes, that's what it's called. So all the courses will fall under the special pops banner. So but I had that same thing, because when I go into day provisions, not all of them can do Zumba, but they will sit there, they will listen, they will nod, they'll clap or they'll tap. So they'll be like tapping their wheelchairs or whatever, but they're getting something out of it, which is for them huge. Because it's going to make them feel better. They might sing along to the music, and you see them singing when they might not talk. I taught a non-verbal guy, really severe autism, non-verbal. The teachers couldn't really get anything out of him in a normal classroom setting. Came to Zumba, he was a completely different guy. They didn't recognise him, and it's through the Zumba that he started talking. And he's left now, and he's left a completely different guy to that I started teaching about 4 years ago.
I think it's so fascinating, and I think like with coronavirus and COVID, you know, we're often looking for the magic pill, the magic treatment, the magic, you know, and music and fitness is magic. It really is. You know, the miracles that you see when you work with people, and what a special, I mean, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
I remember he actually came to so I did a Zumbathon, and his parents brought him, because I told the teacher that I was doing it. They said, if you do anything, it's over the summer holidays, but if you do anything, can you let me know so I can tell the parents? They said, oh, I'm doing a Zumbathon, you can come along. So they brought him along, and I put him in the front row in between two instructor friends. who goes on stage. I say, like, you've got these two instructors next to you. If you ever feel like you get scared or whatever, they're there for you. And I prepped them in advance so they knew. And it was just what he's glued on me the whole time. And he only did my set, and it's half like 25 minutes. He loved it. His parents couldn't believe it. They were like, "Oh my God, he's just a different person." And that is just the power. And he loved music. He always just tapped into music. But he loved it turned out he loved dancing as well. And putting the two together.
Absolute miracle. Absolute miracle. Really. Would you have ever believed that you could have the life that you have now?
No. I think as a disabled person growing up, sometimes you're always told that you've got to go down a certain route of jobs. You're always told you've got to work in an office. You've got to be shut down. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I think I'm a sort of person that if I'm told I can't do something, I like to prove people wrong. And because quite a few people said, "Oh, you can't do that for a job. I can teach classes." I wanted to prove them wrong. And I have. Because 7 years later, I'm still teaching. But I think it also comes from the passion that I have for it as well. And I have a passion for making sure that everyone can access a class or a gym or a PT session, whatever it is. Fitness is for everyone. But I always think fitness is a drug. If you've got a health condition, you should be doing it because it's got far more benefits than you taking a pill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you are an absolute inspiration. And I'm really glad to have been able to learn a little bit more about what you have been up to. And, you know, you see people on social media and I see your posts and I'm always impressed. But digging that little bit deeper, I'm even more impressed. And I just thank you so much. And I hope this really helps anybody who's out there who's struggling with their fitness to ask for help.
Feel free to message me. I'm happy for them to contact me through my page. So please, if you got any questions.
And of course, you are a personal trainer as well, so that people can contact you if they feel they need one-to-one support. You know.
I'm doing PT virtually at the moment. So if they're happy to have a virtual session, I'm happy to do so.
Because and that's the thing. There is always a way. You know.
Yes.
Even you may go through periods of time if your doctor does advise you to avoid exercise, if you're recovering from an injury or a problem.
And there's some health conditions that it's an absolute contradiction. So depending if it's like, for example, if you just had a cardiac event, a certain event, then it's no. But if your doctor says you're okay to exercise, then it's fine.
And as you say, it just makes you really, really happy as well. Even if you don't get on stage with Berto. Yeah, I mean, we can't. I have been on stage with Berto, but that was my first time I met him, and that was in 2011, I think. And he actually called everybody on stage. He said, "Right, does anyone come on stage?" And we all went on, and I was like, "Wow, I'm on stage with Berto Perez with everyone else in the room." And I remember I went up to him at the end. I went up to him at the end and I went, "Thank you so much." And he said, "Yes, get off the stage."
That's Beto. That's Beto.
He's
so direct.
Yeah. But it's fair enough. Health and safety. Get off. Go. Get going. Okay. So again, I'll put some links on the YouTube. If you want any of the links and you have any difficulty, come find this if you're watching already, and click on those links. And Sam is out there doing this fantastic work, keeping it going. And I really think everyone would agree with me to say that you are one of the many, many heroes of lockdown.
Thank you.
also, but no doubt you have also really helped to take some of the pressure off of the NHS by keeping people fit and active. And it was not easy to start and to reconsider how we were going to teach at the beginning of lockdown. There was a lot of pressure to do things a certain way or to not do things a certain way, and you know, you've just smashed it. You've absolutely smashed it. So congratulations, well done. And please, I hope you will vote for her, and I hope you win, Sam. But even if you don't win, yeah, he's just crossing the fingers. Even if cross everything. But even if you don't win, you so deserve everything you get awarded. You do. I've got to say goodbye now. Thank you so much, Sam.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.